Okay, a lot to unpack there. We're going to bring in our Parliament Hill correspondent, Glen McGregor, on this very historic day. Glen, the emotions very high that you saw from the Prime Minister there. And this was something that he has been battling with for some time, this decision. He's been asked for to resign by several MPs now. This is nothing new, but this decision, the timing on this one is significant.
That's right. I mean, to be clear, this Prime Minister did not want to resign. He very much wanted to lead the party into the next election campaign. He believed and has expressed this in the past, and I think he probably still does believe, that he was, up until recently, the best positioned to take on Pierre Poilievre in a general election. But you heard in those remarks there that he's saying he can't continue as Prime Minister with all this internal dissension really within his caucus. And this was all, of course, kicked off by Chrystia Freeland's 3 weeks ago, her sudden resignation as finance minister on the day she was supposed to deliver the fall economic statement. So Trudeau saying he just realized he just could not continue when there's this much controversy about his continued leadership within his own caucus. He also said, and this was, I thought, kind of one of the interesting remarks, is that he hopes that when Parliament returns in March, because he did say he'd asked the Governor General to prorogue Parliament, kind of hit the pause button on Parliament. That basically means, all the existing legislation that's on the table will die. All the House committees will have to be dissolved and then reconstituted. And whoever is chosen, the new Liberal leader, will come back on March 24th with a new throne speech. So the Governor General will deliver a speech laying out this government's new agenda moving forward. But whoever that person is probably won't be in that job for very long. The government will have to pass some supply legislation. That is basically votes in order to keep the money flowing so the federal government can keep the lights on and continue to function in advance of the April 1st beginning of the new fiscal year. But then there will be almost immediately a vote on a throne speech. That will be a confidence matter, and the way things look now, we'd expect the government will fall then, kick us into a general election that would take place through end of March, April, probably sometime into May, because elections have to be at least 36 days and they can't be more than 50 days or 51 days, including election day. So very likely we're going to the polls sometime in May. We are still waiting to hear the rules from the Liberal Party on how the new leader will be selected, what process will be used, what will the spending caps be, who is eligible to run, and crucially, who is eligible to vote. Because in the past, the Liberals have kind of thrown things open and they just basically let anybody vote for the leadership race in 2013 that elected Justin Trudeau. Unclear if they're going to follow that same path or they're going to restrict it more to kind of existing party members, or if they'll allow new party members to join in advance of that. All this rules to come. But Trudeau said he thought maybe his decision to leave, and if he's no longer Prime Minister at the end of March, when Parliament comes back, it'll be less hostile, less combative. His hope was that Parliament would be able to function again if he removes himself from the mix. The other thing I thought was really interesting in these remarks, Trudeau was asked if he had any regrets about his 9 years in power. One thing he did mention, his regret at being able to get electoral reform through. During the election campaign in 2015, he promised to end the first past the post system we have in Canadian elections, where the candidate who gets the most votes in a riding, even if they don't have a majority of votes, they have the plurality of votes, they are elected. Trudeau had favored a ranked ballot system, and he referred to this again today, where people put their second, third, and fourth choices for representatives that would be weighed in the event someone didn't get 50% of the votes. That never happened. A lot of people were very critical of Justin Trudeau for failing in 9 years in power to reform elections. Trudeau now expressing regret about that now that he sees his party, based on the current public opinion polling, heading for electoral oblivion. And if they had gone with that system and maybe put that into law back in his first mandate, things might be different now. But make no mistake about this, this is a really sad day for Justin Trudeau. He is losing a job he loved and did not want to go. He was essentially forced out by MPs in his own caucus. And it's kind of a sad end to his time in public life, or at least in this role in public life. What it holds for the future for Justin Trudeau, hard to say. He didn't mention whether or not he would run again in the next election. It seems unlikely he would, and that there will be a vacancy in his riding of Papineau in downtown Montreal, and there'll be a lot of other vacancies for Liberal candidates that the party is going to have to scramble very quickly to fill now that we're facing, Mel and Cynthia, a general election sometime this spring.
Okay, Glenn, so let's talk about who could potentially be the next Liberal leader. And as you noted, they are in for a tough go because they will face an election very quickly. Pierre Poilievre is slaying them in the polls. So who could replace Trudeau? And let's talk about some big names that could be in the running.
The Governor General's decision to grant prorogation in this case buys the party and the candidates to replace Justin Trudeau some more time. They got almost 3 months before the House would come back, so we assume that the leadership vote would happen, at latest sometime in mid-March, sometimes before March 24th. So the candidates right now we think are going to be in that race: Chrystia Freeland, former finance minister who kind of set the dominoes tumbling, eventually leading up to this point by her decision to step down. But also Mark Carney is considered to be one of the leading candidates, although he is not emphatically declared that he intends to seek the role. Former Governor of the Bank of Canada, former Governor of the Bank of England, has really good business bona fides. A question hovering over him whether or not he has sort of the political skills, the retail politics to do this and to challenge Pierre Poilievre in a general election. We think if Carney will eventually declare he has been kind of kicking the tires, calling Liberal MPs over the past week or so, asking about their level of support for him should he decide to get in the race. Then there are others who are currently in cabinet right now whose names have been bandied about as possible successors. François-Philippe Champagne, the industry minister. There's suspicion, though, he might decide to wait and see what happens in the next election before he makes his own leadership bid, assuming that the Liberals are going to get defeated and whoever is the current leader will be leader of the fourth party. Mélanie Joly, foreign affairs minister, also someone very popular in Quebec, popular with the Quebec caucus as well. Liberal MPs really like her, and she's been actively involved in past election campaigns. There'll be a lot of support for her. And then there's Dominic LeBlanc, very close to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He made LeBlanc his finance minister when Freeland resigned. Of course, he's held a lot of different portfolios in cabinet, considered a steady hand, but his close affiliation with Trudeau may hurt him if the party members are looking for somebody who would be a fresh start. It's interesting to note that Trudeau took LeBlanc with him, and not Chrystia Freeland, took LeBlanc with him when he went down to meet Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago earlier in December. So we're just waiting to see now what the party says the rules are going to be for this, who's going to be able to vote in the leadership race, how much money they're able to spend, all the candidates watching this. But I think we're going to see pretty quickly, over the next couple of weeks, the rules laid out, and we'll have a slate of candidates, I would expect, very early in the process. I think some of these campaigns have been kind of working on the background right now. They don't want to start actively campaigning or openly campaigning for Justin Trudeau when he was still in the job. Now that he says he's leaving, it's wide open. So you're going to see lots of folks join this race and seek that position. But for them, it may be a Pyrrhic victory. They could, whoever gets selected in March would become the prime minister when the House returns, but they may not be in that job for long based on the way the polls look right now, as we're headed for, very likely, unless there's a big turnaround, a Pierre Poilievre government at some point in 2025.
As always, Glenn, thank you for your analysis. And that is our Parliament Hill correspondent, Glen McGregor, for us in Ottawa.